Have you ever been afraid of a place that should feel safe? Not because of what happened there, but because of what you know is still happening. There are sounds that shouldn't exist. Footsteps in empty rooms, movement where nothing lives. And the worst part, when you realize that whatever is making those sounds knows you're listening. This is the story of my grandmother's house and the thing that walks upstairs every single night. My grandmother's house sits on a quiet street in a town that time forgot. White picket fence, rose bushes in the summer, the kind of place that looks like it belongs on a postcard. I spent every summer there as a child. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, Sunday dinners that smelled like roast chicken and lavender soap. But even as a kid, I knew something was wrong with that house, specifically the upstairs. I can't explain it rationally. There was no traumatic event, no scary movie that planted the seed, just this knowing, this primal certainty that I should never, ever go up those stairs alone. The upstairs had 3 bedrooms. One my grandmother used for storage, one that was supposed to be a guest room, and one at the very end of the hall. That room. Let me describe it to you because the layout matters. It's narrow, unnaturally so, like someone built it as an afterthought, squeezing it into leftover space. When you open the door, there are 2 closets immediately flanking you, one on your left, one on your right. Deep closets, with sliding doors that never quite closed all the way. A twin bed sits in the middle of the room like an island, and at the far end, maybe 15 feet away, there's a single window that looks out over the backyard. That's it. Just a long, narrow corridor of a room with closets that gape open and a window that always seemed too dark, even during the day. When I was 7, my grandmother told me a story about the previous owners. Said their 2 sons used to sleep in that room, and both of them claimed they saw the same thing, night after night. A gorilla, she said, smiling like it was charming. They said it would come out of the closet, dance around the room, and go back inside. I remember thinking, that's not funny. That's terrifying. But I was young. The upstairs was used for guests and storage. I slept downstairs in the cozy den with my grandparents nearby. I was safe. Until I turned 14.
The summer I turned 14, things changed. My grandfather's health wasn't great. He snored badly. So he and my grandmother decided to sleep in separate rooms, both on the 1st floor. The den where I used to sleep became his bedroom, which meant when I visited, I got moved to the other 1st floor bedroom. A small room tucked beside the stairs, quiet, private, directly beneath that upstairs room. The first night, I didn't think anything of it. I was 14, practically grown, too old to be scared of an empty upstairs. I went to bed around 10 p.m. The house settled into that particular silence old houses have, not quite quiet, but peaceful, creaks and sighs of wood adjusting to the night temperature. I was lying there, eyes closed, drifting towards sleep. Then I heard it. Thump. A footstep. Clear, deliberate, from directly above me. I opened my eyes, stared at the ceiling. Thump. Another step. Slow, casual, like someone walking without urgency. Thump, thump, thump. The footsteps moved across the room above me. I could track them perfectly, starting at one end, the window side, walking the length of the room, and stopping near the door. Then, silence. My heart was pounding. I knew that my grandparents were both downstairs, both in their separate bedrooms, nowhere near the second floor. The upstairs was empty. I told myself it was the house settling, old wood, temperature changes, all the rational explanations my grandfather would give me. But I knew what I heard. Those were footsteps.
I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to happen again. It didn't. Eventually, I convinced myself I'd imagined it. Stress, teenager brain, first night in a new room. I got up, went to my grandfather's room, knocked softly. He answered groggily. "Grandpa, I think I heard something upstairs." He sighed, not unkindly, but tired. "Sweetheart, the house is old. It creaks, settles, that's all. But it sounded like... Tell you what, I'll turn the dining room light on. That'll help you feel safer, okay?" He shuffled out, flicked on the light. The warm glow spilled into the hallway, pushing back some of the darkness. "Better?" I nodded. Felt stupid. Childish. "Get some sleep." I went back to my room, left the door cracked so the light could reach in, climbed back into bed, closed my eyes. Thump. My eyes shot open. Thump. 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 It was back. But this time, starting from the opposite end of the room, from the door side, walking toward the window. Slow, methodical, the same casual pace. I was frozen, couldn't move, could barely breathe. The footsteps reached the window. Stopped. 5 seconds of silence. Then I heard something that turned my blood to ice. Creak. The stairs. The footsteps were on the stairs, coming down. Creak. 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 I counted them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The landing between floors. Silence. Then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The bottom floor. Whatever was walking upstairs was now on my floor. I couldn't move, couldn't scream, couldn't even pull the blanket over my head. I was staring at my doorway. The dining room light was still on, casting that warm, useless glow into the hallway. And my vision started to blur. Not from tears, from something else. Like the air itself was bending, distorting. I felt dizzy, sick with fear. That's when I heard it. Inside my room. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Slow, deliberate, nails or something like nails dragging down wood.
I knew exactly where it was coming from. My grandfather's gun case, an old wooden cabinet against the wall, maybe 6 feet from my bed. Scratch, scratch. Long, drawn-out drags down the front panel, and with each scratch I could hear the cabinet door shifting slightly against its frame. Just a tiny tap-tap-tap as the door moved. Something was scratching the gun case. Something was in my room. I tried to scream, opened my mouth. No sound came out. My throat was closed, paralyzed by fear. I forced myself to breathe, deep inhale, and then I screamed. Within seconds that felt like hours, my grandfather burst through the door, flicking on the overhead light. "What's wrong? What happened?" There was something, the scratching. I heard footsteps, and then—" He looked at the gun case, walked over to it, examined it. "There's nothing here, sweetheart. You're just spooked. It's okay." "Grandpa, I swear." "I believe you heard something, but look, everything's fine." He stayed with me for a few minutes, checked the closet, under the bed, nothing. Eventually, he went back to his room, and I did what any rational person would do. I grabbed a sheet, draped it over the side of the bed, creating a little fort, crawled underneath, wrapped myself tight in my comforter, put on my headphones, blasted music, and turned my back to the door. If there was a ghost in my room, I didn't want to know.
The next morning, I was exhausted, hollow-eyed and shaking. My grandfather mentioned it to my grandmother over coffee. She had a rough night, kept hearing noises. I tried to tell her it's just the house. My grandmother paused, set down her mug, looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Footsteps?" she asked quietly. I nodded. She glanced at my grandfather, then back to me. "Your cousin Emily stayed here last month. She woke me up in the middle of the night, said the exact same thing. I hear footsteps upstairs." The room went very still. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. She shrugged, uncomfortable. "Didn't want to scare you. Besides, it's just the house." But her eyes said something different. Her eyes said, "I hear it too." I spent the rest of that week sleeping under the makeshift sheet tent, and every single night I heard the footsteps. Always the same pattern, starting at one end of the room, walking across, stopping. I never heard them come down the stairs again. Or maybe I did, and I just couldn't hear them over the music in my headphones.
I'm 29 now. 15 years since that first night. I still visit my grandmother. My grandfather passed away 3 years ago, but she's still in that house, still sleeps on the first floor, and I still hear the footsteps every single time. I've developed a routine. I sleep with my back to the door, headphones on, music loud enough to drown out most sounds, but not so loud that I can't hear if my grandmother calls for me. I don't look toward the door, don't check the gun case, don't acknowledge what I know is happening above me. Because here's what I've learned. Some things don't want to be seen. They just want to be known. The thing upstairs, it's not trying to hurt me. I don't think it can. But it wants me to know it's there. And the worst part, I've accepted it. I've spent so many nights in that house that the footsteps have become almost normal, expected, like the ticking of a clock or the hum of a refrigerator, which is the most terrifying thing of all. Not that something supernatural exists in my grandmother's house, but that I've gotten used to it. That I lie there in the dark, hearing something that shouldn't exist, and I just turn up my music and go to sleep. There's a room upstairs in my grandmother's house, a long, narrow room with closets on either side and a window at the end. 2 boys once slept there. They said they saw something come out of the closet at night, something that danced. I've never seen what walks up there, never opened those closet doors in the dark, never stood at that window at midnight. But I've heard it. Walking. Always walking. The same path. The same pace. Back and forth. Back and forth. 15 years of footsteps. My grandmother says it's just the house settling. My grandfather said the same thing before he died. But here's what I wonder, late at night when I'm lying there with my headphones on. If it came down the stairs once, who's to say it won't do it again? Who's to say it hasn't been standing in my doorway every single night, waiting for me to turn around? I'll never know, because I'll never look.
If this story gave you chills, leave a like. If you've experienced something similar, footsteps in empty rooms, sounds that don't make sense, share your story in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe for more true horror stories, real experiences, real fear. And remember, some things can't be explained, but they can be survived. Sleep well, if you can.